Hi, I'm Father Barry Langley, and I want to welcome you to Friars on Film. The movie I want to talk to you about this week is called The Life of Pi. It's based on the very popular book by the same title and has been beautifully directed by Langley. It tells the story of a young, teenaged Indian boy who becomes shipwrecked on the Pacific Ocean. He's in a lifeboat along with a Bengal tiger. Now, we know the boy survives this dangerous trek and shipwreck because he's telling the story in retrospect from his apartment in Montreal to an interviewer. And he tells the interviewer beginning the story of his life back in India with his mother, father, and older brother. He was a very precocious young boy who was interested in spiritual things. And he tells the interviewer that he was a Hindu Catholic. The interviewer skews his face and says, "What's that mean?" And he says, "Well, we get to feel guilty from 1,000 gods." And then a little later on, he becomes interested in Islam and starts practicing the daily prayers in the mosque there in India as well. So he says that faith is a house with many rooms. This ultimately tells us and reminds us of the great truth we've learned through the Second Vatican Council in their document on religious liberty, that God speaks to us, all of humanity, in many different ways through the various religions of the world. We as Catholics, of course, know that God has spoken to us in a very particular way and resonates within us through the stories of Scripture and particularly through the life, the ministry, the death, and resurrection of Jesus the Christ. And so ultimately the boy is shipwrecked and is in this lifeboat with this Bengal tiger. Along with him and them in the lifeboat is a limited amount of supplies and a book, a manual on how to survive a shipwreck. It tells him various suggestions about how to try to be rescued and how to try and survive at sea. But ultimately it says, above all, never lose hope. This, I think, is the axiom that carries the boy completely through his incredible journey across the ocean and is also the great truth that lies in the movie for us as Christians. We are also encouraged to, above all, never lose hope. This is really the message of our Advent season that we're currently in as well. We hear constantly through Scripture that God never abandons us. God is always with us, always in us, to accompany us on our journey of faith through this life to everlasting life. In particular, we hear in the Old Testament from the prophets Isaiah and Jeremiah numerous times the encouragement that they were giving to the Israelites who had suffered invasion by foreign armies and being carried off in exile to Babylon. They told them that God never abandoned them. God was with them. Even in these trials and tribulations in a foreign land, God would eventually restore them back to the promised land and would help them rebuild Jerusalem. It's an incredible message of hope for them and for us. In the New Testament, we hear often in St. Paul's letter to the Thessalonians that they too are encouraged by Paul to never give up hope. It was written around the year 50, and at that time, Christians believed that Jesus would return any day, that the second coming was soon upon them. And they were beginning to worry that some in their community were dying before Jesus came back and would be forever lost. Paul reassures them that know that when Jesus does come back at the end of time, they too will share in the ultimate rising from the dead. It's a great message of hope, and we're challenged to hang on to that all the time. In Scripture, Jesus tells the disciples, even at the end of time, when all kinds of calamity are happening all around the world, we are to hold our heads high because our redemption will be at hand. Again, great message of hope. And so that admonition that sustained Pi through his journey across the sea and the storm-tossed waves in that lifeboat is a great admonition for us for all time as Christians as well. Above all, never lose hope. That's all for now. I hope to see you next time. Thanks for stopping by again, and as always, save me a seat at the movies.